Come on, Tom. You got this. You got this, Tommy. Come on. Make Daddy proud.
I never wanted any of this. I never wanted to be in the games. I just wanted to save my sister and keep Peter alive.
Miss Everdeen, it's the things we love most that destroy us.
I want everyone who's watching to lay down their weapons now.
You're alive.
PETA is the capital's weapon, the same way you're ours.
You will rescue PETA at the earliest opportunity, or you will find another Mockingjay.
Here we are. Whose idea was it that we, on the film board, lock into doing the whole series of things? Whose idea was that?
I nominate Andrew Nelson.
I don't think it was me, was it?
I don't honestly remember. It may have been me, and if that's the case, I'm sorry.
I think it started with The Hobbit. I think it started way back with the first part of The Hobbit.
That's where the Tom rage began.
Yeah.
Yes.
I assumed it was Peter Jackson's choice.
Well, we've done it. The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 has opened, and we've seen it. I am thrilled, though, in spite of the fact that we're still talking about Katnis Everdeen. I am thrilled to be joined by the Gang of Thugs. Let's see, Tommy Handsome. How you doing, Tommy? Thank you for joining us.
Good. Hello, friends. Thank you for having me.
And Steve Sarmento, Once and Future King. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, thank you.
It's good. It's good to hear your voice.
It's a little stuffy today, but
can't
over
even tell.
A cold.
Just can't even tell.
Good.
Can't even tell. Andy Nelson, ACN.
Hello.
I'm holding up my 3 fingers.
Did you kiss them?
you.
Did you
Thank
kiss them first, though? Because apparently now you have to kiss them.
Oh, is that a new thing?
Yeah,
I
it's a new thing.
I didn't notice that. Okay.
Yeah. Let's. This film directed by Francis Lawrence, written by Peter Craig, Danny Strong, and of course, off the adaptation by Suzanne Collins herself. Once again, starring Jennifer Lawrence, Josh Hutcherson, Liam Hemsworth, and lots of other American Eagle Outfitters cast.
Yep, straight out of Cloverfield.
How do we straight out of Cloverfield? Let's go around the horn for those initial reactions. This time we're going to start with Andy.
Oh,
wow!
I know.
All right,
I know.
I found it incredibly tedious and boring and a complete snoozer. I was so disinterested in everything that was going on, and it was really hard for me to make it through this movie. It screamed the whole time to me, this is a money grab split into 2 movies. They could easily have cut half of this out and made Mockingjay into just one film. I mean, this is me not having read any of these books, but I could just tell there's no reason to have split this because there's not enough here to make a full film. Just make Mockingjay one movie. You could have done it, and you should have done it.
I thought we weren't supposed to hold back in our opinions. All this equivocating is driving me crazy.
Let's, Tom. You have the floor. Why don't you go ahead and let loose with your own personal stormy review?
Stormy review.
It could be a storm of love too. It could be a storm of
could be. No one we'll never know.
We'll not know.
We're about to know. First of all, I think that the subtitle for this movie should be Jennifer Lawrence gets teary-eyed while looking at rubble. But that being said, while for a movie where almost nothing seems to actually happen, and it's sort of like a movie just treading water, I thought that the performances were so fantastic, personally, that it kept me way more engaged than it probably should have. I actually had a surprisingly good time. Right?
Oh, I like where this is going.
Uh-huh.
Steve Sarmento.
I am going to side with Tommy on this one.
Hooray!
Because I have read the books. It has been a while, so I just remember main points, but I think that there was a lot going on in terms of, I think, the performances and character in this, and it was a nice reprieve from just action being thrown at us, and I can, knowing the story, I can understand the split to have it. To me, it's very similar to the final Harry Potter, how they split it. You've got some, slower character investigation pieces, and then you've got action-packed second half in the second film. It's allowed them to really delve into that and letting that not feel rushed. And I went into this wondering if that was going to work with this, and I was pleasantly surprised with how they were able to sort of structure this film where, really there is not a lot of action that occurs. There's no big set pieces, really. There's a few small sequences, but it was really about exploring the character of Katnis and her role in this much larger arc that we're seeing over several stories. So I'm not going to say it's, one of my favorites or a great film, but I did really enjoy it.
Fighters, take your corners. I feel like I split the difference a little bit. I'm with you guys. I think the performances in general, I enjoy the characters in this film, and I think that's, I can't help but watch Hunger Games, any of the Hunger Games movies, without thinking about all the other YA films that have come along since that involve older teens with bows and arrows and guns and things. And so, especially since it opens with the Insurgent trailer, before this movie, and you just can't help but compare it. And I think, Hunger Games as a franchise far exceeds the casting of any of the other films that have come since. So I do enjoy watching these characters. I think in this film, to Andy's point, I agree. There's just nothing going on here. I have also read the book, and there is just a mountain of tedium that they put in this movie that I couldn't help but channel that cynical money grab vibe to. It just felt like they were doing it because it has become a trend to do it, with no good reason to do it at all. I just couldn't sit still in this film. We needed to move on. And so it was frustrating. It was really frustrating because I wanted these actors to be channeled. They all seemed to operate at their emotional extreme, and most of them, that extreme was very low and subdued, channeling Julianne Moore, except for Katniss, who was always crying. So, it is what it is. That's kind of how I walked out of it.
Was it the Harry Potter 7? Was that the first split film?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think that was the first. That's the one that sort of set that as a
new trend.
Did that work for you guys? Did that work for you guys?
I wasn't sure it was necessary either, but again, that's a 7-book series, and those books are tomes. I mean, they're pretty thick, and so I think when you're getting 7 stories in, I didn't have as much a problem with the extra time because it was a world that we were able to spend much more time in. Likewise with Hobbit, which I know a lot of people have issues with, even some here in our group.
Steve.
That's one where, J.R.R. Tolkien has, countless histories and just writings that he's done about all these histories and everything. And so Jackson and crew were able to pull a lot of extra information to help kind of develop the story. And so I don't really have a problem with that one so much. But then you start getting into this Hunger Games series, the Insurgent series, these stories where it's like 3 little books. There's not as much meat to them, and there's not as much world building that the author has done outside of the books. And they're now trying to expand it. And I just don't feel like there's anything there to expand it with. And I have a feeling that the Insurgent series is going to run into the same issue come the last two films when it's the two-parter of that third story, where it's just going to be unnecessary.
Yeah, I feel that way too. And I just heard that the third 21 Jump Street movie is going to be split. It's 23 Jump Street. It's going to be split to 23 and a half Jump Street. It's a money grab.
No, that's purely funny.
I'm making that up. I'm just glad you guys laughed.
I think it's brilliant.
One thing that did,
it's like 33 and a third.
Yeah, right. It's going to end on a hell of a cliffhanger. It's a cliffhanger, just somebody talking in mid-sentence, like a B character just in the middle of a grocery list. Right. You want me to? I'm sorry. You want me to get eggs and that's it. That's the credits roll.
Someone walks up with a clipboard. You're really going to want to take a look. Like, that's it. Just, they don't even finish. Take a look at this. Well, because we're speaking of the books, one of the things that maybe helped, I don't know, color my opinion is that I was a pretty good fan of the first two Hunger Games books. Personally, I thought the third one was pretty much a disaster.
Yeah.
So the fact that the film didn't feel like that, the film seemed more, while it was, as I said before, treading water, it felt confident, and the writing felt more, well, confident to me. And I think that maybe helped, because I was dreading this film because the book was so bad. And then the fact that the movie, because of the performances, but also part of the writing, maybe that helped a lot.
Well, and that's a really good point, Tom. I mean, Sophie and I walked out of it this morning. Sophie is, 12, and both of us walked out having read the books, saying that this is the first in the series where the movie was actually better than the book.
Right. Yeah. Which...
The book was a mess. The book was a hot mess of just like jamming in these sort of militaristic details from an author that clearly has no grasp of the militaristic details she's writing about. It was just a mess.
I felt that she was really good. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, the other thing that's interesting is in the books, Katnis is really sort of this clueless teenager. I mean, she's an older teen, but she really doesn't have a clue as to what's going on a lot of the time. And I think a lot of the first part of the book is she's still like stunned and dazed and traumatized by what has happened, in the arena and being rescued, and then what has happened at District 12. And a lot of that, because the story is told from her point of view, there's a lot of disconnects, and you don't really see all the pieces coming together. And what the film is able to do is we're able to see some of those scenes where Katnis isn't present, some of the behind-the-scenes pieces, the manipulations, or just the structuring of, conversations that are around that are giving us, the audience, information that in the books Katnis doesn't have, that helps round out that story. And I think that really, to me, completed sort of what thematically is going on in the first half of the book. And it came across, I thought, pretty well in the film, as far as Katnis's role and her starting to understand that she's this pawn that's being, used by the Capitol and also by the rebels. And we have this slow sort of growth of her and her perception of the world, because in the first book, the first movie, it's, I want to save my sister. I go into the arena. I survive, mission accomplished. Second film, okay, she's started sort of the seeds of this rebellion, and the president is not happy, and he manipulates things to get her back in there to see if he can get rid of her. And now, at the end of that second film, she realizes, okay, all these people pulled together, the district sort of aligned with each other to use her. They need her to start this rebellion. So the scope of her world, her perception of the world sort of grew a little bit. And even in this third film, the first part of the Mockingjay book, her, sort of understanding of that happens. And there was a scene, and I don't recall if it's in the book, but they're in the bunker, and she's playing with the cat with the flashlight, and she realizes she's toying with the cat, and that's what President Snow is doing to her, taunting her, teasing her, trying to get her to do things, and she's falling for it. And to me, that sort of self-realization that occurred to her of who's using her and why was sort of one of the key moments in the film of her sort of recognition of what's going on, that it's not just about her and Peta, it's a much larger piece. And that, to me, was sort of what redeemed this film as far as the characters, that there was some self-realization for this character that isn't really present in the book, to my recollection.
I buy that. I mean, I buy that to that, and I think you're right. And I think there are some elements in this, in the film that, that really showcase kind of the fact that this isn't really an action movie, right? At this point in the film, this is not, maybe not meant to be it's supposed to be a movie about public relations. I mean, that's really what the focus is, and does it need to be a feature length, contribution to the franchise to say, yes, this is a PR war? I'm not convinced. But I thought, for me, the sequence that really shone a light on what they had to work with in the source material was when they were all sitting around trying to figure out what these promotional films are going to look like, and they propose, right? They keep trying to put Katnis in this 3D world and shoot a video of her saying something to rally the troops, and Woody Harrelson's Haymitch comes in and says, one of the highlights of his career, I hope that wasn't important, as he erases this digital digital whiteboard. And he asks the question, when have we been most attracted or had a greatest affinity toward Katniss, right? When have we loved her the most? When have we felt most emotionally moved by her? And they start listing off these events that were from the first two movies. And it made me think, I'm sure this wasn't their intention, but it made me think really that Woody was talking to us, the royal we, the audience, as he realized we don't have a stinking movie here. We had our emotional connection in movies 1 and 2, and now we're out. I expected him
we want you to think about those.
Yes, I half expected him to just drop his digital whiteboard pen and walk out of off the set.
Let's go replay those moments.
Now let's talk just a little bit about some of the performances. Obviously, Jennifer Lawrence, we already have that she has cried. Otherwise, do you think she lived up to her prior role as Katniss in the prior two films? Do we like her?
Yes,
she's fine. I mean, yeah. I mean, she works.
Ooh, words every actress loves to hear.
And cut. Adequate. Moving on. I think she's great. I think she's very relatable. I think she can look like a movie star, can also just seem like someone next door, and I like her acting. It's not showy. I don't see any tics. I don't see any kind of gimmicks or anything like that. She seems to really be reacting a lot of the time to what's really going on, and I forget sometimes that I'm watching an actor. What more can I ask for that?
Yeah.
Steve?
No, I think that to me, really, I always have that bar of that final shot in Catching Fire, where so many emotions just play across her face, and to me, they tried to go back to that at the end of this one and having a sort of a similar moment, but it just didn't have that emotional resonance. And I think, the performance is solid through this film, and I think that's really what carries the film, because it's depending on the interplay of these characters, and I think she carries the film to do that. I mean, she's got a lot of heavy lifting to do in this film. Yeah, there's a lot of cry and there's a lot, but I think, as I said, the character of Katniss, there's a lot of growth and self-realization. I think that comes across in the film in Jennifer's performance.
I agree. I mean, she for me is one of the highlights in terms of the performance, but I couldn't help but think about that she is one of those actresses that's stuck in the franchise catch-22, right? That the first Hunger Games came out in 2012, and since then she's done so many other I'm a teen warrior princess films that have required so much more of her. Just take Silver Linings Playbook and American Hustle for two, and you realize just how far this woman has come as an actress. And so watching her come back into Mockingjay, I couldn't help but think about that she is, she has made herself in so many ways overcast for this part. And so it was a little bit hard to watch her.
Yeah.
Well, that's something.
Because you feel that she's slumming it?
I mean, Julianne Moore and Philip Seymour Hoffman and Jennifer Lawrence. I mean, those are heavyweights.
They
and
are.
yeah, there's not a lot for them. I mean, they do a very good job, but I think that the writing, the script, there's not a lot for these characters. It's not really stretching these actors.
That was it.
We've
yes.
seen the range, and I think
Got it.
that's the story doesn't call for that necessarily, but I think definitely there's some weight that they bring to their performances that helps that. But I agree. There was a scene early on where when Katniss first comes in and Julianne Moore is whatever Captain or Commander Coyne is talking to her about what's going on, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's in the background, and he's just sort of like flipping through his little book, and I'm drawn to him. I'm like, as an actor, it's like, here, sit in the background and flip through this book, and I'm like, really, that's what you're asking this guy to do? You've got him on set, and you just flip through this book and look interested in these pages. And I thought, what a waste of talent. And I think there is that to it, but given the roles they have, they are able to elevate above the script what it's calling for. They're able to bring some things to it that I think with other actors cast in there that I think it could have felt more stale or just so that would have left us feeling maybe that's the way you guys feel about it, just like, I didn't really get a lot out of this. They brought something to it. There was some emotional resonance to these actors that I think that came through, but I agree it didn't really stretch them to what we know they're capable of.
Yeah, I think it. From my view, it does come back to the source material, and it's just weak source material, and they do the best they can.
Well, and even to the point where, I mean, to have Katniss have her moment, and I think I'm the only one here who hasn't read the books, to have her kind of big moment as our protagonist of the story, where she actually steps up and has her kind of climactic battle with the bad guy, with Snow. She's not on this secret mission, she's just watching it on video. So they have this video interchange. So she has to step up and actually do that video conversation with President Snow, which, I mean, to me, it I don't know. It just, it's great that she got motivated to kind of step up and have that conversation with him. But it also just, I mean, it didn't seem that exciting to me because she's our protagonist and she's not really that involved in this, this escape that they're planning.
She's not on the front line.
Is it
right.
that there's only so much drama you can build up over Skype? Is that what you're saying?
we try every week.
Pete, it's Tommy. Pete, can you hear me? Pete, President Pete.
Now, with respect to the fantastic Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh,
did you not say that like the whole time? Every time he was on screen,
walked on, it was like, oh.
Whenever
Smiley
he was,
Phil.
even if he was in the background, I would just watch him because I feel like he was owed it.
Maybe that's why you like the film so much, is that you just weren't paying attention to anything else.
No, I was just screaming Phil.
No, and then when I see him and Julianne Moore together, I'd go, oh, Magnolia.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
Yeah. Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was great, and he was just generally as the soul of the public relations war that is Mockingjay Part 1. I felt like he did his part. I loved his little notebook that he was constantly writing in. To me, I mean, whoever already mentioned that he was always writing. I was fixated by his always writing. I was wondering, how does he sketch note? Like, what is he doing in that little journal?
My guess is that no one asked him to do that. Paul Thomas Anderson has been on the record jokingly but truthfully saying that when he was alive, he really loved his business. Like doing actors' business. Like the scene, there's actually in a documentary made about Magnolia, he does an impression of Philip Seymour Hoffman saying, okay, the scene is walk from here to the bed. And then it takes Paul Thomas Anderson doing the impression 5 minutes to walk to the bed because he's picking everything up and like knocking things over and like going through books and stuff. It's hysterical. So potentially he was just like, this scene is boring. I have nothing to do, so I'm going to give myself business.
I'm going to believe that.
Yeah,
me too. Oh, I love his business.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. He smiled a lot. That was the one thing I noticed, is he always seemed very proud of himself, but because he brought Katniss into this whole thing. So he always kind of had that little smile every time I saw him. So like, Smiley Phil.
He was very smiley. I like that he was proud about that. And that, I mean, you could tell he just sort of crowed about it every chance he got. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, she's the one. Make her hurt more.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and going back to that whole the little propaganda films. I mean, to me, that was a really interesting moment of sort of commentary on sort of the role of entertainment and how it can be used to manipulate people, and that you can put people in front of a green screen and give them a poll and say it's going to be a flag, and if it's not from the heart, if it's not true, and if it's not honest, people aren't going to buy it. And I thought that was really interesting in a film that, again, I don't know how much of this is practical effects and how much of it is them standing in front of green screens, but sort of that, what do we buy into? Sort of this underlying message. And I think that's sort of the stretch in Mockingjay of Suzanne Collins sort of stepping out of her depth and trying to say something about what is this, balance between, community working together versus government, and information and misinformation. And it's sort of some really heavy, complex topics to sort of delve into. And this, story may not have been the best and most appropriate place to do it, but I think the film tried to get that across. And I think that's probably why the story spends so much time, is there's something to be said about how governments manipulate people, how rebels try to use information to, clear away disinformation. And I think there's that piece to it that I found interesting, an interesting exploration with these characters that I was willing to go along with. And that's to me, my takeaway from this film really is it's different from being in the arena because there's something it's trying to tell us. There's something a little bit more complex to the story.
Right. It reminded me of Wag the Dog to a certain extent.
Oh, yeah.
And that is something to whether or not it won its aim, like whether or not it really got across what it wanted to do. The fact that a YA movie is trying to sort of talk about something like that, I think is admirable.
Oh, I agree. Hopefully kids are starting to think about advertising and messages. I know one of the things that was a topic in our family this week was that Barbie book. The Barbie is Computer Programmer book was a topic in our family in terms of Barbie the engineer that needs, Steve and Bob to fix her code for her.
My other laptop's a boy.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that it's, hopefully it's getting kids to think about, the messages that are out there and how they try to manipulate us. And to me, that's, again, coming back to Katnis and her self-awareness of that, if hopefully, adolescents are looking at, advertising all these things and starting to think, well, how is this trying to manipulate me? Because Katnis is, to me, that's, the second half of this film where Katnis is trying to, sort of use the rebels to get what she wants. She's like, she wants PETA back. She's going to use her leverage as the Mockingjay to try to get what she wants. To get PETA back safe. She feels responsible for him. So she's trying to use that. And how Snow turns that around of like, okay, you want him back, the things that you love are the things that can hurt us the most, and how PETA then becomes twisted in that instrument of harm. There's something, for kids to think about in terms of when you get what you want, information, those things.
I don't disagree with any of that. I really believe, and seeing this with Sophie was terrific because, it just is another reminder as a dad of a daughter that these are real issues, and that ultimately, Katniss is a nice, strong role model. I feel pretty good about that. My problem is when that's translated into a movie that, when all of those messages really could have been told in a way that was frankly more mercenary in the writing process. Like this just feels like sloppiness and, and shameless. Really shameless that they couldn't tell that same story with that same intention and these same characters in a way that allows us to have the whole story. That was the biggest frustration, and for me and for my daughter, that she walks out saying, "This is really stupid. Why did they have to split this movie up? This is really stupid." Because it just feels
like there's too much padding.
Yes, way too much padding. I can't. I mean, I've been that word mercenary has just been tinkering around in my head because you just have to be in writing any long format project. But this felt almost like the other way, that these writers in particular, Peter Craig and Danny Strong, are capable talents in Hollywood, and that I imagine, at least I have this wonderful kind of fantasy in the back of my mind where they had a nice tight script for Mockingjay, and hopefully they were paid a lot of money to come add a whole lot more stuff and make 2 movies, even though they were in fact selling out to do so.
It felt completely like that's exactly the problem I had, is everything about it felt like a sellout. And just like watching some of these performers, like Natalie Dormer, who played Cressida.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's great on Game of Thrones, but here I'm like, what is the point of her character? She's the videographer. It's like, that was the least interesting character to sign me up for that role. I mean, I'm hoping that she has something more to do in the second half, because it's like, why is she here? You
thought she was more interesting than her team that had no tongues?
Oh yeah, they're all the whole team was like that whole element just it just was an extra element of tedium, and I'm just like, there's no point to these characters being here or developing them or introducing them. I mean, it just seems very strange to me that they made this real point of bringing this team out there, and then it's just like, well, they do nothing. And
because there are names on the page. There are names on the page of the book.
And even when it comes time to fight, when it's like, we're going to take down the ships that are destroying this town or destroying this district, whatever it is, it's just Katnis and Gale who run off to take down the ships. Like, none of these people do anything.
What about the soldiers that were with her? Like, there were soldiers there.
Right. And these people aren't even risking their lives to like, oh, we got to get up there and film them doing all of this stuff. Like, they... just like, what was the point of any of that? I really had a problem with that.
I thought it was that scene earlier, the scene when they're doing the first propo. I really like saying that word, apparently. When they have the camera helmets, when Tongueless Magoo has the camera helmets, I giggled in the theater because I thought they looked so weird, and it's as if the film heard me giggling because all the rest of the propos there were no more camera helmets. There was just weird handheld boxes that didn't seem to be filming anything. For me, the idea of the padding and stuff, I do agree that it was padded, and it really was still just the performances that kept me going. But to go back to which district is Katniss from?
She's
12?
District 12.
The fact that we go back to that twice, is that for me was unforgivable.
Yes,
that for me was, and there weren't. I wasn't as upset as you guys were for a lot of the scenes. I felt like they had at least emotional reasons to exist, but to go back and do another rubble scene at the exact same place with the exact same slow pullback, well, this time it's Gale talking about everyone running away.
Yeah,
it was like, you do that if you're an indie because you can only afford one set. I mean, that's insane. That was unforgivable for me. I completely agree as far as that for padding.
Yeah, and another scene. It's too bad because I also think, I think in terms of the reaction shots, right? I mean, Jennifer Lawrence, I thought was a perfectly believable state of nausea when she witnessed her main street being, decimated.
Yes.
And I also liked Gale's response. I liked his little speech. I thought it was useful. I also felt like this was a great example of a production team that fell in love with their babies. And you got to cut your babies. Like, at some point, you have to cut this stuff that ends up being just filler. I couldn't agree more.
Or combine them
somehow. Find a way to streamline this production. It was just too heavy. Andy, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say another scene that really bugged me because it's just such it really was just a stereotypical scene that you always end up having. And in a movie that was over long and, we've already talked about just, the unnecessary nature of splitting it. This is a scene that they could have cut or found a way to do something else more interesting that hasn't been done before. But it's the scene when the District 13 is being bombed and everybody runs down to the bunker, and then all of a sudden she's like, where's Primrose? Where's Primrose, her little sister? And of course she's the one person, I had to run out to get my cat. And so Katniss has to run out and try to find her and get her just in time as the doors shut and everything. And it's just like, that was such. I've seen that scene a million times where the protagonist has to run out to save that one last person who had to go get that one thing that they can't leave behind.
Andy, I laughed out loud because of you during that scene, because she was actually saving a cat.
Right.
And it's important that we like Prim.
That's right. I'm glad
Later on.
that.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't read the books, right, Andy?
No, I haven't read the books. But
Oh, okay. Then I won't say anything more.
But the whole idea was just like, I mean, I didn't need to see that scene. It was so unnecessary. It's another scene that they could have cut. And then also Gale was in it awkwardly as a shadow running behind Prim. And it's like, why? I didn't even know that Gale was out there.
Nor did anybody else, apparently.
And then all of a sudden it's like, there's a shadow running behind Prim. Who could it be? Oh, it's Gale. Hey, he's out here too.
Who else could be out here? Have we really checked our list twhice?
Just so many cats.
Who's doing this 10-second countdown?
Hundreds of cats just desperately trying to get somewhere. Well, but I mean, while I don't think it was well done, Andy, can I ask you, because you haven't read the books, can you not listen for a quick second? This seems really weird, but this is something that for the people that have read the books, I think there's a reason why that scene was included.
Okay.
Is this just too weird?
No, it's going to be weird because Andy's going to be trying to watch your lips. And since we're in only audio, he'll be watching a long time.
So, Andy, don't listen for a second. We'll type you when it's time to listen again. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay,
Tommy, are you getting into spoilers for part 2? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. Should I not?
No, do it. I dare you. I triple dog dare you.
Because I've read the book. I know where you're going, but
Go ahead.
Actually, it's a huge point of contention in our household as well. But so go ahead.
And I'm going to listen anyway because I'll just listen to the show later to hear what you say.
Oh yeah, good point.
Andy has no soul. He's dead inside. It's not going to affect him.
That's right.
Wait a minute. We're not live? I have my parents listening. Well, I guess I don't know if the word is cynically, but I understand why that exists because maybe I won't say anything too much, but I'll say that we need Prim much more than in the beginning to be an important character later on. We need to feel for her. And if it takes such a dumb cash grab as going and literally saving a cat, we need to care for her for what's coming.
You didn't care for her enough without the stupid cat?
I think, again, I said that as poorly as it was done, I understand why it was there. Andy was sort of positing that could just be completely cut. I understand why it existed.
Well, I hear you, and I raise you the fact that the entire franchise of the Hunger Games is built on a foundation of love for Prim.
Yeah.
Because she volunteered?
Because she volunteered to save her sister in the first place. Yep. Like, we love Prim because we have 2.5 movies at that point that have told us how important Prim is. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this.
Yeah, I don't know if I completely agree with it. I think we believe that Katniss loves Prim, but Prim has been almost nothing but a "please don't take me, I'm young" crier. Before this, they gave her a bunch of like scenes crawling into bed with Katniss and exchanging things. Like, this is the first time that I think Prim actually really became a character versus just a symbol.
Okay, I guess I'm saying, let's just say Gale had gone to get the cat, Prim's cat, alone, and Prim was safe. Would that have changed your opinion of Prim, of the importance of Prim, or your emotional connection to Prim?
I guess I don't know why I'm arguing this, because I don't think it was well done. I guess I'm being like a devil's advocate. Is I understand the choice, but I'm also saying that it was poorly done. So maybe I'll just back off.
Well, and I don't mean to be poking, because I don't mean to be poking at your little balloon.
Because I like your question. If I was answering for the writers, I would maybe answer different. But for me as a person, no, I didn't care for that scene.
Yeah.
Well, and that's something I think that's very important. That if Prim is such an important character later in the story, find a different way to make us feel more for her, because that scene,
because it's actually annoying that she runs away.
Yeah, yes. It's annoying.
I'd forgotten how annoyed I was.
She is the kid who's in trouble for saving the stupid cat. Like, she's
because it's not even a nice cat. I mean,
it's always missing.
Katniss hates the cat. It's like, who likes this cat? Oh, Prim does. She's the one who likes this dumb cat.
But also, Andy, you don't know this, but the cat is incredibly important.
So really, it was the cat saving Prim.
Oh, you just
We'll
burned my
see.
brain a little bit.
We'll see in a year, won't we, Andy?
That's where we have to look at adaptation and where you have this sort of slavish loyalty to the source material versus what works best in the film and how to balance that. And because the fans are going to look for certain things, but you also have to look what serves the story well. And I think that's sometimes a difficult choice to make. And I agree. It was a scene that I was like, it's creating a false sense of suspense. Like, oh, are they going to make it back? I'm like,
Of
really?
course they're
Because
gonna
it's
make
like
it back.
with 2-1 in, it's like, let's count it down to that. Like, does it need to be that close? Why do we have to do this? Because, it's creating, to me, it's creating artificial suspense and that's unneeded and unnecessary. And I think, doesn't do much for the story or character or anything, but I'd have to look back at the book. It's probably in there because it's in the book and they felt like they needed to have that moment.
Oh, I wonder. That's interesting. Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know remembrance of that in the book. I don't remember most of this.
Or they felt that the story needed some action, some suspense to carry it along to the next segment of the film. We need something up.
Like.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. Let's throw in some action here, and we got to put someone in danger to make our audience care about this. Yeah,
right.
But this was this was a film that didn't take any risks in that regard, and I can't help but think back to a film like Serenity. Just when you think that all of the characters on the crew are invincible, Wash gets a tree through his chest, and so I keep thinking like that was a shocking, like earth-shattering moment in film for me, and I couldn't help walking out of this movie and think, gosh, you know what, if if this had been if this had been Serenity, if this had been a Joss Whedon thing, I actually think Prim would have gotten crushed in the giant doors.
Well, and
right, you know
else,
what I'm saying, but I say that sarcastically, but a little bit not, like maybe not Prim, but just take like this was so stinking predictable, like in an area where they just had such a rich tapestry to be able to do something, sort of interesting.
Well, and this is a series that is built on moments of powerful deaths. And I mean, it's a horrible thing to say, but I mean, really, every movie has all these people that she connects with, and then she has to fight and kill. That's kind of what the whole premise of the show, or the previous two movies, were based on. This whole show that everybody is watching of the Hunger Games. Let's watch as people kill each other and see which district comes out on top. That's kind of the premise of this. And she gets attached to these people, and then they die. And we see a lot of that. And nobody, I mean, it's awful to say, but nobody dies in this. There's like no real threat of that, of things being taken away from her. And things, I mean, they actually rescue all of these people. And I guess you could say PETA is the one who is affected, and it's not a death, but it's the fact that he's been brainwashed to destroy her, really, is kind of that switch that we have in this film. But even that didn't have as much strength for me, because I kept asking, well, why is he the only one they brainwashed? They brought all these other people back, but none of them are brainwashed to kill Katniss or Haymitch or Finnick or any of these other people. And I don't know. It just struck me as weird that he was the only one that they did this to, and I don't know. There wasn't as much power in that.
That to me, that's the best way to harm Katniss. What does she love the most, and turn it against her?
Right, but why didn't they do that with all of them? I mean, it seems like
she doesn't care about all of them. Everything she's done is because of PETA. It's always been about him.
But it's a lame tactic. Why would President Snow say, "Oh, but let's only brainwash one of them to kill Katniss"? It's like it's great that he does that to get back at Katniss, because Katniss loves PETA so much. But if he's trying to get rid of Katniss, why doesn't he brainwash all of them to kill her?
Because of his arrogance that he's got control and he'll take care of this. But right now it's a personal thing, and I think that's what they try to take it to. Is that again, that's why we have this let's create drama over Skype. It's really about Katniss versus Snow and how they can hurt or harm or undermine each other. And it's sort of like a game of chess that's trying to play out between them of, even going back to Catching Fire of, he says, I need you to get people to believe that you love PETA. We all know that you don't, but you need to play this role. And it's this manipulation maneuvering that they're going back and forth with. And that's, to me, I was fine with that. What's interesting is the way the film played that part when the sort of the head of security smacks PETA over the head and it goes to black. People behind me were like, "Oh, that's the end." And I thought that would have been an interesting way to end the film.
Yeah, I actually had that feeling.
I thought
too.
so too. I was like, wow,
I was like,
cool.
wow,
That's like the first and only risk they take in this film, and here we go. Yes. It's right at the end. Thank goodness they give me something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Andy, to you, can I ask a follow-up question to what you were saying?
Sure.
Because it makes a lot of sense, and that actually resonated with me. But I'm going to use the word resonate again. The idea of no one dies in this film. One of the other things that Katniss is going through is that whether, that it was built on the fact that she's going into our arena, killing people that she gets attached to. The other big thing is that people that get attached to her are killed. That just being around Katniss becomes horrible. And so you said that no one dies. Obviously, no one above the line, but that entire hospital, for instance. Did that resonate with you at all?
No, it didn't. And again, maybe it was just because I was focused on the way that the scene was structured, and the fact that I was like, why is no one else helping Katniss and Gale while they go destroy these ships? Why are they the only two who step up to do anything? And
well, they got separated by wreckage.
Well, they did, but we don't. They could have given us, cut to some other people doing things. I mean, there's things that they could have done to make it feel like more people are doing stuff, and we do see a couple other people trying to fight these things and stuff, but none of the core people there are doing anything. And I don't know. And I just felt like the hospital scene, I couldn't connect with anybody in the hospital. It's if we had seen somebody that she knew from the first movie or the second movie that was in her town, that would have helped.
So that holding up their fingers. Fair enough.
Yeah, right. I mean, I just had no connection to those people, and so it's wrong to say nobody else dies, because obviously a lot of people die. But yeah, it's people that we're connected to.
Because remember, the emotional backbone of the second film was between Katniss and Rue, right? That was a very special relationship, right? And there was nothing like that. There was no individual connection that we get with Katniss in this film that allowed us to really feel that growing strength, that she, or that motivation for that growing strength in her. It was just like assumed always there or not, but it was just unclear.
Yeah.
So. Danny Strong and Peter Craig. Peter Craig is he wrote the he wrote The Town.
Ooh.
With Ben Affleck, and he wrote, and this is his second feature. It looks like he's already obviously on deck for part 2, and Top Gun 2 and Bad Boys 3. Which I know you all are looking forward to. So
are those all real things?
Yeah, those are all real things. Danny Strong has a much sort of broader career as an actor than he does as a writer. He's done a lot of TV work. He was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer and a number of other films. Lee Daniels, The Butler, Seabiscuit. He has, in terms of his writing credits. He wrote Lee Daniels, The Butler. He wrote Hunger Games Part 1, Part 2, a couple episode of Empire, and the announced screenplay for The Lost Symbol, Dan Brown book adaptation. So that should be interesting. But in terms of how the script was structured, to our resident experts, what do you guys? We've already talked about the padding issues, but in terms of what these guys delivered as screenwriters, any additional comment?
If we're taking the idea that I love the idea that they had a tight script and then they were like, nope, make it 2.
That's my fantasy.
There weren't. While I had a couple padding problems, which I did talk about, Steve, in your absence. For the most part, there was enough. The performances were great, and there was enough emotion and slow reason for a lot of the scenes that there wasn't tons that I would take out. I think that maybe given a fairly unforgiving task, they did a really good job. Or potentially, I can't tell the difference between script and performances for this film.
Well, now, Tom, I think maybe it was Pete. I think, do we blame that splitting of them into 2 on the writers, or is that something that was mandated by the studio?
It would never be because of the writers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it was, here's this book. This is going to be 2 films. You figure out how to make this 2 complete films. And to me, that was, my biggest question walking into this is when you split a book that has, although this does have sort of two parts to it, how do you balance that? How do you create sort of a self-contained story that has a beginning, middle, and end, that feels as a complete arc, that you walk away from saying, okay, I can't wait to see, part 2, but this felt like a complete, story in itself. And how did they do that? And I think, they managed it sufficiently. I don't think there was anything great or tremendous, but I think given that challenge, I was entertained. I didn't find myself looking at my watch at any point saying, come on, get on with it, whatever. I felt, drawn through the story, that there was enough balance. As we pointed out, the scene with the cat and the stairs, yes, we can feel the sort of the behind the scenes manipulation going on. But other than that, I think for a lot, experienced film viewers like ourselves are going to see that coming. For a lot of these kids that have read the books that are going to see this, that don't have that tremendous back catalog of films to see, this might be the first time they've seen something like that. It's going to be okay for them. And I think it served its purpose, and the writing served its purpose.
I think that's very generous of you. It's for the kids.
Hey, well,
no, but also
I always say, look at what the film is trying to accomplish and judge it on its merits. And it's like, okay, adapt a book, tell the story well, and I think it did that sufficiently.
Okay, then I follow-up question.
Steve's thing, real quick though, because I think it's right in line. Is again, I said, in my opinion, the third book was garbage.
Yes,
this movie was not garbage for me.
Yeah,
so I think they did it more than sufficiently. I think they did it admirably.
Okay, so follow-up question then. Francis Lawrence, the director, I don't think we've talked about anything else he has done.
Catching Fire.
And that's what I was going to say, other than Catching Fire. But, he did Water for Elements.
Constantine,
I Am Legend, right. So he's had some other films, obviously, in his credit, but we've talked about Catching Fire. This movie, seeing what he did here with Mockingjay, really made me want to go watch Catching Fire again, because I thought there were so many great transitions and great elements and great just sort of visual particularly the second half of the sequence that was like this rock star IMAX, film. The second hour of Catching Fire was just gorgeous. And in contrast, I feel like this was to me, this was a radically different experience. It was very, very compressed, constrained, claustrophobic. And obviously, so much of this for me goes into production design, just the lack of color. I think it felt like it was trying to make a statement that just didn't land. It just didn't land. It came off as just sort of bland visually. And again, I say this in contrast to Catching Fire, and I have a real difficulty separating the experience.
Is there anything to be said? I guess it's probably an incredibly obvious point, but so much of Catching Fire either takes place in the opulent capital or the forest, and this takes place in bunkers and ruin.
Right, and that's why I say, I agree with you, Tom, that so much of this may be just the visual adaptation of nastiness,
Sure.
That the book puts you in this place. But I still feel like there was nothing really interesting done with it. A few of there were a few segments that I thought were actually of note. The what was it, Sector 7, the Tree Huggers? Mm-hmm. I thought that was a fun, albeit brief sequence, and the disaster at the dam.
Yep,
I thought was a really interesting. It was a fun sort of visual break in.
Well, I thought the best visual break was, actually when they went and sat by the lake and the mockingjays were all flying around. Like, that was actually one moment that I actually did kind of like.
Yeah, we did. That was you get a splash of vibrance.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the other piece that, they did it, in terms of adapting things and bringing some familiar characters is to really expand the role of Effie Trinket, to get more of Elizabeth Banks, that character, because in the book, I think it's dependent a lot more of the sort of they're not nameless, they do have names, but sort of those generic helpers that we saw in the first two films that are her hair and makeup and costume crew, of rolling that all into the, function of Effie Trinket and what purpose she serves in the story, of combining that to bring that character, to make that choice and adapting that was, I think, a wise choice, because it kept us focused. It brought a familiar character and another actress that can really bring something to that role. I appreciated that in terms of looking at how to adapt these pieces and find those threads that are going to help carry us through. But I think, as Tom said, they're really sort of hamstrung by the source material of you can't stray too far from it. You can't reinvent too much. You've got to maintain some certain loyalty to it. And the first half just doesn't give them a lot. I'm really looking forward to the second half, particularly because I think we're going to see more of what we saw in Catching Fire in the second half. And I had just watched Catching Fire probably about a month ago, not having seen it for a while. And again, still just awestruck by that film of how it just pulls everything together. And yes, this is sort of the lull before the big storm breaks loose at the end. So I am looking forward to next November.
It just makes me wonder, though, if the book is bad, as Tom says, is the worst of the series, and if it's got this first half lull, it just makes me ask again, what is the logical reason that the studio said, let's split it into two movies? And because I just don't feel like making a movie about the lull before the storm seems like a smart move. I mean, looking at the box office numbers, I mean, it's having a heck of a weekend.
Yeah.
But it's still 20% shy of the franchise open.
Right, because you know what? Otherwise, we'd all be complaining. Wow, the first half of this film seemed really rushed. Like they pushed through all this stuff to get to the big action sequence, and we just didn't get enough time with these characters to understand what their motives were for this big part that happens now.
I honestly don't. That's a straw man I don't think we could make, Steve. I really don't, because there is so much in here that is just redundant, just emotionally redundant. We get it,
but you guys, the rubble.
And
so much rubble.
Any other interesting cast or crew that you would like to that you've really been hanging on to you haven't mentioned so far?
Was that song in the book?
I think it was. I think that
the "Let's Meet You at the Hanging Tree."
Yeah, as I recall, that is from the book.
Okay, I liked it.
Yes, I did too. I agree, Andy. That was a nice moment.
Yeah.
There.
Jenna Malone was great in it.
For the 5 seconds she was there.
She kind of was, though. She really summed up her Jenna Malone-ness and just like, I'm going to rip these like EKG meters off my forehead with impunity and look at me.
But you know what? Her performance really nailed exactly my feeling about the film. The whole film should have been like that.
Yeah. I wonder if she got paid full rate for this film, like she'll get paid for the next one, or if it was just kind of a lump sum for both films, because boy, I want a moment like that.
Yeah.
Let's say we give our final little assessment and then rank this puppy, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Steve, final assessment.
I'll stick with 3 words. I enjoyed it.
Oh.
You bookended it. I love it.
Tommy?
Again, the performances brought me through. The film was treading water, but I was actually not bored, and I actually thought that I enjoyed a lot of it. I mean, I did enjoy a lot of it. I think I enjoyed
I was told I enjoyed a lot of it.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it at all. There was nothing enjoyable for me, except maybe the scene with the Mockingjays. That might be the one scene. And, just as a side note, I thought the tree people was completely silly. The fact that they ran up the trees like Edward from Twilight was completely nonsensical.
Spider monkey.
When there's people shooting at them with guns, it's like, how are these people with weapons not hitting these guys?
Well,
these guys
they're stormtroopers.
Yeah,
they are stormtroopers. It didn't seem like that great of a plan, though.
No,
it didn't. It seemed like a terrible plan. And that just struck me like the whole film. It's like the whole thing was a terrible plan. Splitting the book into 2 pieces, it just made this just an unbearable experience for me.
It's as bad of a plan as setting a detonation in a dam and only giving it like a 10-second timer that you're run out.
Having it destroy the bridge that you're on.
That was a disaster.
Think about the plan.
I said 30 minutes. Oh.
It's just the plan that that was a sign of sacrifice, right? We're going to send our people to the dam. Well, how many people? Well, go ahead and send all of them. Send all the people to blow up the dam and just, say thank you before you tell them to go. I liked this film only moderately before we started talking about it, and now mostly thanks to Andy, I like it less. So I know this one has deteriorated over the last hour for me, and I just can't help but come back to the shamelessness of splitting it up. That was just, to me, a completely useless choice, and I'm very frustrated by that. So I think we need to head to the flick chart.
Katnis thinks there's hell to pay. The districts are in such dismay. Peter seems to be all gray. There's no more Hunger Games to play. Time for flick chart. Haunting, right?
Oh my gosh, that should have been in the movie.
That should have been
haunting. Okay.
Time for flick chart. Head over to flickchart.com/TNR film board, and you can catch up with all the films that we have ranked as a gang of thugs right here on this very show. And let's see if Mockingjay Part 1 breaks the top 17.
17 out of 27. We'll see.
Not if Andy has anything to say about it.
I control the button. All right, The Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 1, or The Bourne Legacy.
Bourne Legacy.
Which one was the Bourne Legacy? The third one?
That's the fourth one.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, the one with Jeremy Renner?
Right.
Yes.
I don't remember any of it. Probably the Bourne Legacy.
Yeah, I'd say Bourne Legacy.
All right. Mockingjay or The Equalizer?
Abstain?
I'd say The Equalizer.
I'm going to say Mockingjay.
I'm going to say The Equalizer.
Yeah, Steve.
Wow, and you guys hated The Equalizer. Wow.
Have you heard the last hour of this show?
I'm going to watch it. All right. Mockingjay or Now You See Me?
Wow, it went straight to the bottom, didn't it? Okay.
Good.
I'm going to say Mockingjay on this
Mockingjay.
I think I'm going to say Now You See Me.
I am too.
There's just something so adorable about that movie. I like watching. What's her name? Is there Amy Adams?
No, it's
what's her name? Amy Ryan?
No, it's Isla Fisher.
Oh, I'm going to stop talking then. I wasn't even close.
I hate that movie now.
Yeah, Amy Brenneman. All right, go ahead.
Amy Brenneman.
Yeah, that's
all right. So it's 2 for 2. So we're going to do a rock paper scissors.
Yes. Are you ready?
Right, ready?
1, 2, 3, scissors.
Damn.
Ooh, all right.
I'm like 3 for 3 on you now.
I know. You keep skunking me on that thing. All right. Mockingjay or the Wolverine?
Mockingjay.
Yeah, I would say Mockingjay here too.
Yep.
Yeah, Mockingjay.
I don't know, but Wolverine has that,
Train scene.
One,
I would say Wolverine. I'm going back
to and then
2 sequences versus 0 sequences.
Oh,
I once again agree with Andy on this one. I'm going to go to Wolverine.
What is this nonsense, wishy-washiness?
No.
More like
it's okay because
Pete
Pete's on the street.
Because
He's
remember,
beat Andy.
I also very much liked the arrow scene that nobody else seemed to like, but that's 3 sequences for me.
Wait, there's only 2. It's the train scene and the arrow scene.
Oh, well, exactly. As I said, the 2 scenes.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Mm-hmm.
There was something in the beginning that I liked. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, there was cool stuff in the beginning, and then it just
No,
derailed.
you're thinking of the trailers.
I also like the magic bed. The magic
bed.
The guy, the Asian benefactor had the magic bed that was made of like small silver steaks. I like that too.
You put your hands on.
Yeah,
needle.
Right, I like that. So Andy and I agree. Who's going to do rock paper scissors for the opposing team, opposing counsel?
Who's on the opposing counsel? Steve and I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve, please do me the honor.
Okay, I will.
All right, Pete, it's you and Steve.
All right. Are you ready,
right.
Steve?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Steve.
All right, here we go.
Steve, I need this.
I know.
Shut it, Tom. All right. 1. You have to say it with me.
Okay.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Paper.
Rock.
Oh, I love it.
Oh.
When that happens.
Rock.
Who won?
Paper
I said
covers
paper.
rock.
Paper covers
that's
rock.
right. That's right. Okay.
Oh. Steve, why didn't you say revolver?
Because everybody knows you pick rock.
I know.
All right.
Poor
Mockingjay or
Bart.
Monuments Men? I will say Mockingjay here.
Mockingjay. Sorry, John.
All right. There you go. 24 out of 28.
Did not break the illustrious top 17.
Oh, shots fired. I don't know what that means. We did it.
Hey, well done, gentlemen. This is a good conversation about a mediocre film at best, but I think the conversation is better than the film. Hear that. Bold words. Do we have one picked for next week? Do we tell? It's already out there, right, Andy?
For next month.
For next month?
Yeah, we can tell.
Yeah,
it's going to be no surprise because it's Tom's favorite film.
Wait, what is it?
The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies.
I saw the trailer for it in front of this movie, and I was like, come on! There's so many people with beards yelling things that I don't understand. Fine, I'll be there.
Maybe we can get a little Kickstarter fund
to
fund your ticket price there for you, Tom, to see it in 3D, 48 frames per second, and its awesomeness.
I think it's 96 frames per second this time, though. It's 96 frames, and there are 1,000 hands that come out of the seat and poke you to give you the environmental feel of this. It's feel around.
I want to watch it while precariously on this really small walkway.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Cliff. That's perfect. Ugh.
So
many Armies. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just got very excited when I thought of you when that said when I read the article, it said now with 45 minutes of extra battle footage at the end of the film. I thought this is great. Creatures throwing things at other creatures. This is right up Tom's alley. It's going to be a real treat. So that's coming up opening weekend of The Hobbit. So look out for that. The thugs will be back together, and. There we go. And surprisingly, I mean, for people who complain, and I say that mostly for Tom's sake, the Hobbit films have done reasonably well on our stack ranking, sitting at number 12 and 13.
I'll see what I can do about that.
Steve Sarmento, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
All right, may the odds be in your favor.
And Tom, may the odds be in your favor.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Andy, as usual, more Andy and Pete.
More of us.
This is good fun, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next month as the Film Board returns.